Good evening, you are welcome to News Night on Metro TV. We are taking into retrospect 2022 the various news items that made headline. My name is Kojo Esiama Ado, lead advocate for Social Watch Africa, and I am here with.
My name is Sanyo Chagli, the brand manager for Jata Cement. You can follow us on DSTV channel 277 and on Metro TV Ghana on Facebook.
And I am Benson Thompson, the executive director for ASEPA, and we are here to be your lead anchors today.
So in our first story, on Thursday, January 2022, residents of Apiate witnessed a black day as a truck carrying explosive killed many, leaving others maimed. Here's a report.
Sana ohona mofra dan ebu egu mofra no so ma wo asie so ba me frɛ sɛ bia mehia mo bia ba mo bia mfi ba bia ama ti ba the time oboafo ba na sɛ mofra no ba ko afrim
me kona meti so mo si ne mpa hye wo nti mo pagya ebu bi firi wo na mo twetwe ndua
excavators na pagya niaman ana
boys bi na no pagya na me ho se me na no hye
me ba no na waka acha me wo ma bian so wo kwata dziba wa ase wo mo ma ade na ekukuru ho akwahwe karo kwem ma kuni efuru ma etu ekuru so na chiri etu ma mojecha na otiti meti na wale wede ho ya le ekoguta kwa na anepe me la da me da kwa akwaso nze bokwa na kuran sa wo twa na yen dade ne bi sa na ha ma na afuna ho na ayadam nti wo twa na wale wo be na operation nti memla na papa nko.
Other victims, like 18-year-old Sule, 35-year-old Paul, among others, have had to go through various surgical procedures to stay alive.
And I'm a good girl, one of the cap percent, and I'm the good to know. The down from her. Made the one man of this one on my penis. And so I know I have come for to pajama and now at the auto, pajama and now at the auto. And I'm glad to be soon. No pajama didn't wait to come.
Jina need 2 minutes. Jina need 2 minutes. They won't say. There's a who and empo. Who and we nam ha, we not, we sa. It's not easy. The bit more dry. Timmy mention has him a pie that year in Petifono. A big ram. I'm asking me, be a chairman, Bone say it's not easy.
Services of psychologists were employed to psychologically reorient victims, including driver of the truck, who doctors say is currently traumatized and in a state of shock.
Devastation causing lives natural. But to the extent
the embattled motor rider Philip Mensah has however debunked claims fingering him as the cause of the explosion.
That time, can't so explosives. But they actually say, "Womo to ne shares are explosive."
I don't know. Me to hono. Me Kebia,
now when you soon see you, now when you go so,
Mupejami, no, Madame Shet, sorry, or Madame Shet taxing him. But what's my say? No, Madame Coy.
car kɛseɛ driver o car kɛseɛ o mehu car biara.
Enti no deɛ yɛba ha yɛbɛte sɛ wadeɛ ne kɔhyɛ car no ase ma car no ma de ne blasting ne ade ne nyinaa nyɛ nokorɛ.
Ɛno me mehu sɛ me moto no na ɛkɔhyɛ ase o sɛ car no na yɛfa moto no so ɛno deɛ me mehu aha because bibi esi me mechi mpatwa watem ase aha deɛ esi biara esi o me mechi.
Meanwhile, government, on the back of this, has closed down Maxam, the explosives company in question. It has also promised residents of Apiate of government resolve.
You're welcome back to News 9 on Metro TV Ghana. Mensa and Kojo, what do you make of the sad incident that happened earlier in the earlier part of this year?
Well, I think this is one of the most sad stories for 2022. A very, very unfortunate incident that happened there in Apiache. I think that we need to use this opportunity to console the families. We know that it's a very traumatic experience. The people who went through this experience, many of them may not have.
Apiate is predominantly a farming community.
Many of them may still have not recovered from the shock and from the experience that they went through. There are also those who got injured may still be going through some recovery measures up till now, because it wasn't just a minor event. But I think this whole incident brings into perspective, one, our safety mechanisms as a country. It also brings into sharp focus our emergency response mechanisms as a country. And I mean, the issues of commercialization with respect to environmental sustainability, health and safety. These are conversations that we can have all day on end. But we had the June 3rd fire and flooding and fire in Accra. We lost a number of lives, we lost a number of properties, and we just went to bed. The following year, we had flooding in Accra. We still have not been able to resolve some of these issues. And so when these issues happen, these are issues that goes to the core as a Ghanaian in respect of the quality of life of a Ghanaian, which later feeds into the human, development indices of every country. Because your emergency response is as instrumental as anything else. And we saw, how, Apiache further exposed the weaknesses in our emergency response system. The other issue have to do with compensations. The families who lost their loved ones, government set up an Apiache redevelopment fund. As we speak, we don't know what has happened to that fund. We saw, they said new houses or properties were going to be developed for the people. As we speak, we don't know the status of those projects. And so it looks as if when disaster struck, we all bemoan for a couple of moments, and then after a while, we all go to bed.
Let me bring Kojo into the discussion. Kojo, government promised rebuilding the Apiate environment for the people of where the disaster struck. Can you bring us up to speed to what has happened so far?
Yeah, thank you very much, Senator. I could confidently say that the project is up to a standard. The other day, our news team was there to capture the level of development that has gone on. The compensation, as Mensa said, some few people have gotten their compensations, and then the structures have also gotten to certain levels. Some have been completed, some at the lintel level, others too at the foundation level. But it brings to bear as to the cooperation from the community members, and then also how stakeholders are engaging each other. Then the next thing, Senna, has to do with, we need to be able to use Apiate as a case study to have more robust communities. I mean, when you take the district level, the municipal and the metropolitan levels, we need to have communities that are befitting. You need to have more or less the hospitals, the markets, the fire service, the police stations, the schools, so that when you go into a community, you will realize that this is a very safe community. You just open the development plan or framework of that community to the indigenes to take over. It is high time that we use the local government system through the Local Government Act 936 to be able to engineer all these things. So government takes the lead and the indigenes also fall in line so that we wouldn't have such issues. And as Mensa said, our emergency response is not up to standard. We can talk about the Melcom situation, we can talk about the fire situation that happened in Circle and the rest of them. The reports are still gathering dust somewhere else. We don't know what is really happening to most of them. And then also, when government change, you realize that we don't see to the end of those issues. So we need government to be able to lead all these things so that at least we will be able to have a safe community. But may the souls of those who lost their lives in Apiate and those who got injured, their souls rest in peace, and those who got injured, fully recovery.
Yes, and Senor, to add a little bit of point, you remember we had the atomic gas explosion.
Yes, yes.
We lost so many lives and properties. We commissioned a report into the incident.
Yeah.
Now, as we speak, that report has been shelved. Nobody knows. And so when disasters happen, they are supposed to be learning experiences.
Yeah.
Because if we had learned from the atomic gas explosion incident, the lessons would have been able to prevent the Apiache incident. Because it's all about, transportation, storage, and transportation of dangerous materials, which organizations and industries use. So the atomic incident has to do with gas. The Apiache incident has to do with dynamite, with explosives for mining industries, and we know that's the hub of the mines. Now, what are the safety guidelines for the transportation of these explosives? How were they adhered to? Who was responsible for what? Who has been punished for what? Because and a company caused this major destruction. We just find a company some paltry amount, and the company gets back to work. At the end of the day, what is the value or the premium we place on human life and the safety as a country, and the lessons and the punitive measures you want to put in place to serve as a deterrent for companies who are storing and transporting these explosives, to know that when you go contrary to the safety regulations and there's an incident, you won't be only fined a paltry amount, but there will be penal consequences for those actions. And I think that example has not been properly set with respect to the Apiache incident.
Well, I remember Maxam put up a statement saying clearly that they had all their procedures in place to make sure the product was transported rightfully to that destination. And unfortunately, we had a disaster that struck that took away many lives, and then we are still reeling from those disasters. I think it's really on point that government to make sure things are put in place to ensure that these disasters don't strike again, that don't happen again in the next foreseeable future. Because, like Mensa was saying, we had a lot of, the Junta was a practical one, the atomic gas explosion was another one as well. So we are looking at the fact that, okay, going forward, we will be able to make sure government to put in place measures and policies to ensure that everybody carrying explosives into whatever destination they are taking it to will make sure lives are not lost in this situation.
All right, thank you so much. So we're moving on to our next story. And in the eastern region, several communities in the Lower Manya and Yellow Krobo municipalities were thrown into over 2 weeks of darkness. This follows the decision of the ECG to disconnect power to communities in the area over a misunderstanding in the installation of prepaid meters.
From one of Ghana's food baskets, the whole Krobo land, Yellow Krobo, Lower Manya Krobo, Upper Manya Krobo. Today I am here in Krobo, Odumase, right in front of the Yogaga mountain. We are not here to treat tourism. We are here to look at the consistent power outage in this part of Ghana.
The enclave has in the past months been thrown into darkness after confrontations with the Electricity Company of Ghana over prepaid meters. The narrative eventually got inflamed after the involvement of military men during the installation of prepaid meters. Lives were lost while some residents suffered injuries in the process.
Hello, Ibadeke. Picture ni poor. Ibadeke you go fix meter.
No education. They brought soldiers. Even policemen came and killed human beings. But soldiers have been trained to kill human beings. Police were to keep peace and order. Even they came and killed human beings in Krobo land. Now, ECG went and brought military men who have been trained to kill human beings, shoot and kill human beings. They were not trained to kill grass cutter or antelope or deer or anything, but human beings. All of a sudden, they were brought into town to come and fix prepaid meters. Even when you are away, they climb your building, remove your meter, and they fix prepaid meters. And off they go. If you see them at work, the military men were fully dressed with crash helmets, guns pointed at where they are standing, that anybody which will venture will be shot.
But what really is the story? What are the issues on the ground?
In 2014, some Chinese man and his team of workers came around fixing meters, postpaid meters, for those who had low meters. They fixed those meters. What I heard later was that those meters were not, the details was not given to, the data was not given to ECG. Though they come around to read the meters every now and then, they never bothered to read those meters because they said it was not on their list. So the bills accumulated from 2014 to 2017. Lo and behold, 2017, they brought huge bills. That is a period of 4 years. And I, for instance, had traveled to cure myself in my mother's hometown. I stayed away for 1 solid year. When I came back, my son, I had a son, was the only person I left behind. I was given 4,200 Ghana cedis bill.
For a year.
So I asked him, were you melting gold? Because gold melts at 360 degrees centigrade.
Subsequently, the Electricity Company of Ghana, with some military men, disconnected transformers in the Yilo Krobo and Lower Manya Krobo municipalities.
Every night we had a shot, so we came out around 2 o'clock midnight. So as we studied the car, it was ECG and the military men. So we checked the transformer. We have seen that the cables were being cut. So we can't do anything because there are military men and ECG. We don't know anything to do. So in the morning, we rush to the chiefs, then we report this thing to them.
This has resulted in power outage in the Krobo enclave for over 7 days. The brunt of this is felt in every corner of the Krobo land.
In the light, local magapia, like yon magben. You're going to make 3 days today, but you are in any pay in your pet.
I'm only able to sew 2 outfits in a day. This has affected my daily sales.
In a sky, I got time nego be on a market bang a human or 5-4 in the light.
This is the repercussion of the power outage here in the Yilo Krobo and Lower Manya Krobo municipalities. He was able to, out of the 70 eggs he tried incubating from Monday, he was able to make progress of just 5 chickens or chicks being hatched. And out of the 5, some have already gone. They are dead. And then others are on the death row, awaiting to possibly maybe awaiting a miracle to keep them alive. Midway my filming here in the Krobo land, I ran out of battery for my camera. So I decided to visit one of the shops here to find out if they could be of help. I got here and I realized this particular shop is using a generator set.
So I asked if he can help me charge my battery, only for him to tell me once this battery is charged, I would have to pay 5 Ghana cedis. Apart from that, phones that are charged here, whether smartphones or what we call the YAM, anyone who brings them here to be charged would have to pay 3 Ghana cedis. And he is even being benevolent with the residents here, because I visited other shops and then they are charging 5 CD for the smartphone and then 3 CDs for the YAM or the smaller phones.
But how soon will this crisis be resolved?
Not that we won't pay, but we can't pay. There is everything we won't pay and we can't pay because they don't just simply have the means to pay. Those huge bills, from where would the money come from? Whole and cutlass farming. When you plant cassava, take a look at the period that your cassava will mature for you to go and have it.
While residents battle power outage, ECG offices in the enclave remain closed. Willing bill payers would have to travel all the way to Japan in the North Tongu district of the Volta region to pay bills. The impact of the power outage is hugely felt at night by all in the Kroboland.
For the cameras, I would have to use my phone. So this is my phone here. I turn the light on and then maybe once I put that on my face, you can see who is talking. Except for my phone light, then the whole place is dark. I would be doing my report or doing the talking in the darkness. So people here have had to live for over a week without any source of light. And the Electricity Company of Ghana authorities are also not saying anything. So everyone is living double-minded. My name is Shadrach Odame Ejare, reporting from the Yilo Krobo municipality and the Lower Manya Krobo municipality here in the Eastern region for Metro News.
And as my colleague Shadrach just experienced, only one day in the Manya Krobo Municipal Assembly, only one day, and his battery ran down. What really happened to all those who were staying there? I mean, the businesses that were there, residential, and other government institutions. How did they suffer? Let me move on to Senna. Senna, you experienced this, at least. You got to know the story. Over the years, the Manya Yilo Krobo has become very notorious, and they are having this issue with ECG. What do you make of this story?
Clearly, I think the ECG story was one that could have been avoided. Because clearly, when you have a state institution like ECG moving to install meters in a certain enclave and having to leave those meters unattended to for the past 4 years, clearly residents will not come up to the fact that, okay, when you bring them a huge bill at the end of the 4 years, they will fight the system not to pay. So in dealing with the issue, I think government ought to have done something much more pragmatic. Go sit with the people, dialogue. And say, okay, we've installed meters that you've used for 4 years. You haven't paid the bills, it's like, those are revenue losses to the state. Mm-hmm. But then in trying to recoup those revenue, there's a way to go sit with the people and dialogue. But when you go with brute force, with soldiers, sad spectacle of people being beaten, people's shops being closed down, just because people haven't paid their bill. I'm not here advocating for anybody who uses the ECG which shouldn't pay their bills. But then again, you go into an enclave, you go in there, get meters installed. You want revenue losses plugged, because we need to plug revenues that are always leaking. And ECG itself is a case that Ghanaians have to grapple, because every time there are losses, people are not paying their bill, people are doing illegal connections, people are trying to find a way to beat down the system. So with the same issue that has to do with the Yilo Krobo land, I feel government ought to have gone there, sit with the people, meet the chiefs, meet the opinion leaders, talk to them, let them understand that, okay, you can't have power for free for the past 4 years. But don't go in with soldiers to go and trying to attack the people on there, to try to use force to get them to pay the bills that they owe the company. I feel that government should have just gone back there and said, okay, listen, we are coming back to you people. We know you owed us for 4 years. We'll change the meters anyway. But then everybody who owes us a bill must pay every bill that has been used, because these are bills that government must have to pay. Because ECG and government must find money every time to make sure we have the lights on. So certainly you can't use the power and then go back in there and say, okay, you're not going to pay money for what lights have been. Business were affected, like Shadrach was saying. Day-old chicks are gone, people could not sew, artisans could not do anything else to use with light. And then it was like a story that broke, that really, really saddened my heart, because we need to ensure things are done properly in this country.
Mensa, coming to you, I mean, as executive director for ASEPA, what do you think that one of the challenges we have in Ghana is engagement, stakeholder engagement, to be able to have an amicable solution so we can transpose it to the national level for us to have the benefits thereof? Walk us through how should government or ECG should have tackled this issue with stakeholder engagement?
Well, first of all, how did the problem accrue in the first place? How did the people of Yilo Krobo or Menya Krobo end up not paying bills for the past 4 years? How did that happen? Whose responsibility was it to ensure that these people were paid? Whose responsibility was it to put the mechanism in place to ensure that these people were paying the bills? Somebody is responsible for that, definitely. And so when people relinquish or renege on their responsibility, and then there is a fallout, and government's only response is to use violence to remedy the situation, then you have a problem. And this issue goes beyond just electricity and bills payment. No. This issue goes to the core of the use of state security, that at every instance in the dealings with civilians, government want to use state security against the civilians. And we've seen that there's a number of examples that I can cite where issues that had to do with just communication, just negotiations, just interactions. We saw the Kumasi incident. Is it Kumasi Girls incident? Where the police just went in, start, attacking, firing guns among students, young students. It is in that same vein that they took these military people to Yilo Kropo to think that that is the only way, from the top of government's head, the only way they can get the people of Yilo Kropo to pay electricity bills is to send military men there.
That's why I want you to narrow in on what are the key elements. What should we do? Engagement. How do we go about it so that we can eliminate all these?
So the first point is that whose responsibility was it to ensure that the bills were paid? Whose responsibility was it to ensure that the systems were put in place to ensure that there's proper collection of bills? And so that is one aspect of the conversation. The other aspect of the conversation is that in terms of government response, if you're looking at the big power theft, the big power theft in this country is not happening at Yilo Krobo. The big power theft is happening with the big companies, with the giant corporations who are stealing power, doing illegal connections. And when they are caught, people go and collect some change, and then you don't hear of anything. So those are the true. When it comes to dealing with these big corporations, I don't know what, because they are powerful corporations, because they have money or they have resources, government is very, very, very soft in dealing with these people. But when it comes to the citizens, then government think that, his only approach is that let me take people and go and start beating these people. Meanwhile, the big part, the power that one company can steal from ECG in a single day will be the power people in Yilo Krobo will use it a whole month. These are peasants. And you see, in the villages, there's not so much economic activity there. And so sometimes bill payment is a problem. And it's not just Yilo Krobo. Go to the Volta region. There's several villages where, if you look at the bill, and that is why government subsidize. And we in the cities pay more for electricity than those who are in the rural areas. And so government must just find a way to communicate its intention and bring the people on board. The approach is never violence. If you have a government whose automatic response to every situation is to use state security against civilians, clearly there's a problem with that.
I mean, moving this to another level, Senna, you are very much aware that sometimes, even in the big cities, there are people who disconnect their large power-consuming equipment from their meters, especially the fridges, the air conditions, and then others. So this is a caution to people who sometimes, as we say, you are being government she. Sometimes what you are doing is causing government. And this goes even to water. There are some people whose water meters are not even reading, and then they are causing financial loss to government. But a quick one, Senator, a quick one. Have you heard that most of the people within Yilo Krobo feel that there is a contract that or an agreement with Kwame Nkrumah that those within that enclave are not supposed to pay electricity bill for some time? I mean, you heard about that, whether it is true or not. What is your take? A touch, just about 30 seconds.
In wrapping up, the story you just shared, I listened to it carefully. And I want to say there's never an agreement between the people of Yilo Krobo and Kwame Nkrumah at the time. In any case, government has struggled to pay or to plug the losses that have to do with ECG, with revenue loss. Definitely, we can't live in a country where you use power generated and tell us that you don't want to pay for the power being used. So I feel that the agreement that was in place with Kwame Nkrumah at the time, which I am not privy to, I think shouldn't surface because we need to ensure we have the money to pay and get the powers on.
All right, that's fine. All right, so Mensah,
yes, I think we need to also look at it. I haven't heard this story about whatever agreement they may have had with Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But you know that during the construction of the Akosombo Dam, some concessions were made with the indigenous, especially people who live in areas where the dam they are going to be affected by the construction. So it's a matter that properly needs to be interrogated. If, of course, there was that discussion at that level, then, of course, if government want to then nullify it or remedy it, then the discussion must go beyond that. But I think that I haven't heard that bit of it, but if it's true, then it's something that we must interrogate.
All right, thank you so much for, your thoughts and all that. Let's move on to the next story. And as you are well aware, embattled Dome-Kwabenya MP, Sarah Adwoa-Safo. There are issues with her appearance in Parliament and also her disappearance in Parliament. This is a compilation of what we've put together for you on Adwoa-Safo.
Adwoa-Safo's absence from Parliament has created deep cracks among party members and her constituents who have on numerous occasions called on Parliament to declare her seat vacant. The embattled MP for Dome-Kwabenya and two others were cited for absenting themselves from Parliament beyond the permissible period. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, then referred the three members of Parliament to the Privileges Committee for further investigation. The committee failed to achieve a consensus in its recommendations on whether absenting herself for more than the mandatory 15 days without permission warranted her seat being declared vacant. The majority, however, insisted the recommendations of the committee that the seat be declared vacant without delay in line with slated constitutional provisions was binding on the House. The Speaker in the end ruled that the committee's report will have to be debated by the entire House before a decision is taken.
It's for the House that will go through it because the mandate given to an MP representation is so crucial that it cannot be left to the subjective view of any person or group of people, but the whole House. Please, honorable members, table office will accordingly list the motion, and this House will continue to deliberate and debate on it and take a final decision.
On Friday, November 11th, the embattled MP stormed Parliament after being away for almost a year. She was spotted in Parliament wearing a red coat and beaming with smiles. In a brief engagement with the press, Adwoa-Safo said she was happy to be back to Parliament to serve her constituents.
I'm now back and back as a member of Parliament to continue my duties, and so today's the first day, and I'm hoping that the subsequent weeks are going to be good. It feels good to be back. That's all I can say.
For now, Adwoa-Safo will continue to remain the MP for the Dome-Kwabenya constituency until a final determination on her fate by Parliament.
Because
o medu akwanya no so amumwa na ese se kwan bai sa na o meka so o moye kwan so na kwan na enko so ba he gwata o moye wa ha nyina o munwie ye ko kan o sika na sa nti o sika be na o de be ye o man yie na sika na fa o hen so on ya me kire no sika na akodu o hen nti ha me say ye di kokromoti beto abama no akotra ba bi de ene kan say ya nto abama o ma na ye kopa obi fufuro betra so a anu be better say ye di kokromoti beto abama o no akotra wa bro kire na say ya ye timamofu na mobu ye say na ye bu say ye jimi fo ma o ma na say
MPs no say omo dada ye na se begina wie no to aba na la wo mu begina position na la no ma forget ye kwan ye da ye kwan ni nyina anye ahade so akopie madina no so nye eti no ba say omo be dada ya jona ya beto aba no dia ma omo na omo nya position ni wie na say omo mfi ya I don't think say the next time no sebe ye de kokromoti be ma omo abenya dibire because onya dibire na wode na busuan ne man kwa na ede wo mo dwene ho e ba sa very nonsense ndi ye nya sa ade ni biem because ye nya nkwala ye ni left and right na we ba begina wiem ni ato ama wa MP busa say da be kura no wa father ubedu na bodyguard fo na jeje ne fia no kokromoti na de beto na obewini no opa mo wini ne kwatwa mo ne kwa no teta wo beka so ye kromfo ye bebo enso kokromoti na de e ma wo mo di nya power enti say wo mo bedi akunya no so na wo de fe no mo ntimi mo ye ne next time no ye befa ye ho adwene
high bebre because ma wo constituency no ma ye say oye na won ko parliament e be de na wotuma ye adwuma constituency na ye hu say do me ko abenya constituency so constituency e so biggest constituency say etosu mienu say etosu miensa ye na eto aba no ma no and say want to man ko ye adwuma na ma ye e da no so e say etutiaw enti no anse on ko parliament ye nim de esi say MPP for na nkasa onye omo ho investigation no mu bi san de enti a on to ko parliament no enti ama ye omo ye vote ni eyi wo parliament kra na MPP for short enti wo yes aso o man bo no mo government na enko nanim because opposition kra nya baby ye na djuma aden na wo government teso no untumi mfa nya djuma.
The duty of MP is to go to parliament and perform your duty as an MP for your people in your area. So if you are not able to be to the office to do that, that means you are disappointing your people or you are letting your people down. You see, for some time now, we have not been seen here in the parliament. There was a time they said somebody impersonated her. We don't know how true is it. So we are looking forward for the government to do investigation on that case to let us know, we people living in Domi constituency here, to know what is happening about Ajua Safo. Yes. Yes, it's very worried. It's very worried. Because we have a lot of things here in the constituency for her to do. Formerly, when she was in the parliament, she used to say, oh, I'm in parliament without a father because my father is not in the government. That means at the time it was Mahama. Now you are with your father. So why are you running away? You see, you say your father is not with you. Now that you are with your father and you are running away from your father, how can you attend to your needs?
You are still watching Newsnight on Metro TV. And on the story of Ajua Safo, there are 4 angles to it. Her constituency, parliament, and then also the house of the Jubilee House as to what really goes on over there. Then the next angle is her ministry. Don't forget, she was the former Minister of Children and Social Protection. Now, let me come to you guys. I mean, we've seen her. She was in America, and sometimes I feel like I want to speak like an American, you know, when she went back to America with her TikTok videos. Mensa, what are the chances of Ajua Safo going into 2024 general election? We are picking it from her party, internal, then we're moving to the general elections. What are her chances?
Well, in terms of her political party, I think it's important that they get to, decide whether indeed she deserves to contest again or not. It's also up to the constituents to make that decision. But I think that it's a very wild story if you look at it. First of all, she's a minister of state in charge of children and social protection, gender, children and social protection, and also a member of parliament. And so she abandoned her role first as minister even before she traveled. There were several months she was absent from the office based on, I think it was a misunderstanding first that emerged when she fired, I think, the head of the school feeding program, and later an order from the Jubilee House had to get the lady reinstated, and then it became a chaotic situation. She abandoned her ministry. And for us, that is where we think this problem started. The inability of the president to crack the whip at that particular moment, to relieve her of her position, especially when she has voluntarily abandoned the office and appoint somebody else to occupy that position, to the extent that she remained absent and still an occupier of that office for months. Later, a caretaker minister for sanitation had to be reappointed to take care of the ministry whilst she wallowed away. And so it's a situation or story that clearly, and on the face of it, undermines the authority of the president. That what was it? What is so special that a minister can abandon her position for months and still the president cannot relieve her of her position? So that's one thing. Then, as member of parliament, the job of a member of parliament is 70% legislation and 30% taking care of your constituency's needs. And so a huge chunk of the work of an MP is in the House, where we make laws, where you represent your people so that your people are not left out in terms of decision making. Now, what happened there? Total absent for several months. That means that for a long time, the voice of the people of Kwabenya was not being heard on the floor of parliament. That is what it means. And that was also quite problematic. But to be fair to her, I mean, the interview that she granted, she's also made some very concerning issues about her own personal health, the health of her child, and she thought maybe a time off would have helped her recover because, of course, the psychological well-being of a member of parliament is also very important to be able to make sure that they're able to scrutinize the bills and the laws that comes to them. But the critical question to ask at that point also is whether she went through the proper channels of seeking permission or leave of absence from the floor. And I think that, and that's where, the speaker have been very clear that, yes, Adwoa Safo had been properly communicating her position to the House, also, and also to them. But my only problem with this whole impasse was how there were other members of parliament who were equally, we are also absent yeah. or truant from the House. But why the majority in parliament decided to single out Adwoa Safo and make a case out of her is a question that makes for an interesting interrogation.
You're right. We will interrogate all of that. I mean, going to 2024, we'll interrogate that. But Mensah, you have the next story on e-levy. I mean, take us through the next story on e-levy.
Parliament earlier this year had to decide on the fate of the Minister for Finance on a vote of censure filed by the NDC MPs seeking to impeach Ken Ofori-Atta. The debate and the vote on the censure motion will be taken following the expiration of the 7-day notice mandated by the Constitution. Ahead of the vote, the Deputy Minority Whip, Ahmed Ibrahim, said all NDC MPs have been instructed not to miss sittings in order to get the required numbers to carry out the objective. Thus removing the Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, from office.
Members of Parliament from both sides of the House first took turns to debate the fundamentals of the ad hoc committee's report on the vote of censure against Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. The minority side insisted the minister was guilty of the grounds leveled against him in the censure motion.
What is also worried is that this 339 million Ghana cedis, all of these withdrawals, Mr. Speaker, you will be shocked when you go to the site, Mr. Speaker. We are also raising issues of accountability, issues of transparency. 339 million, Mr. Speaker. This is the latest drone footage from the site. 339 million. This is what this is 339 million. I asked the honorable
Speaker, is it not true that he owns Data Bank? Is it not true that Data Bank is the one who is a transaction advisor and a book runner borrowing for government? Is it not true that Data Bank is paid fees that he gets dividends from? It is true. So what is it about the conflict of interest that we should not be discussed here? Mr. Speaker, is it the only financial institution in Ghana? Why is it that before he became a finance minister, Data Bank was not a book runner? Why is it that suddenly you are everywhere, that bank? Why is it that now Data Bank Enterprise Group, they are now the only financial institution that are taking every business?
An economy to the extent that you are seeking to help save the economy with the debt exchange, which is threatening the financial health of the economy and the health of the financial industry in our country. I'll just review a report that foreign cannot just do with your debt exchange initiative.
Your time is up.
But the majority caucus will have none of that. They stressed that the allegations were baseless and merely motivated by malice.
Because Ghana is a beacon of democracy, we continue to be pace-setters. A motion is being put in place, but it is clear that this motion is not well grounded. It is clear that the pillars on which this motion was moved are weak. Ground one is being rejected. Ground three, the committee itself did not even take evidence on it, and the other grounds are not well motivated. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this motion should fall and fail.
So the share is mandatory. And I am adding it as part of my submission that to the extent that Parliament could not meet this constitutional requirement, all that we are doing, Mr. Speaker, if care is not taken, will become ultra various of the Constitution. Because, Mr. Speaker, we do concede ab initio. Mr. Speaker, we did concede ab initio that there was no such procedure in place. That is why, Mr. Speaker, you set a motion in place to allow a committee to even hear the minister.
The majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, after making his submission on the motion, led his caucus to boycott proceedings.
What it means is that some of them are not right. Some of them are untrue. Some of them are faulty. And we want us to vote with you. Mr. Speaker, you need to find out which ones are true and which ones are false. Like conscious violence, we will wash our hands.
The minority caucus then proceeded to participate in the secret ballot, which saw all 136 minority MPs voting in favor of the motion. This, however, could not meet the minimum constitutional requirement to oust the finance minister, hence a ruling by the speaker that the motion has been lost.
Those in favor after the secret vote is 136. Those against, 0. Abstentions, 0. Now, in accordance with Article 82(1), which reads, Parliament may, by a resolution supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all the members of Parliament, pass a vote of censure on a minister of state. Following the terms of Article 82(1), the vote is accordingly lost.
The minority, however, has vowed to use other alternative means to get the president to act on their demand.
We sincerely apologize for the change in story there. The story we just read to you was a motion for the vote of censure against the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta. Now, quickly, Senor, let's wave into the discussion. It's a very interesting journey, and it all started when about 96 or 90 something. Yes, majority MPs came out boldly to ask for the resignation or the sacking of Ken Ofori-Atta as Minister for Finance. And it became so controversial. They threatened to boycott the House, even before they threatened to boycott the House or any official business that the government brings to the House if the minister was not removed. Even before the minority officially filed a motion for the vote of censure against the Minister of State. Now, Senator, are you happy about the outcome of this particular vote of censure?
Mensa, this has been. Hello. Okay. This has been a very interesting story because Ken Ofori-Atta, going back into the days of having to the Red Friday on the streets, having to talk about Occupy Ghana, telling us, okay, all the insight of what they have achieved on their own. They were self-made, they had the men. Baumia and Co putting out a whole list of telling us, okay, this is a fantastic economic management team, up and down. Then he was sworn into office as a finance minister. And we can tell from what he's done over the years, being finance minister, that he's done abysmally. He's been abysmal at anything that has been thrown out to him. Because he occupies an office that virtually came to tell, okay, we're going to move this country from taxation to production. They failed woefully. They came to tell us, okay, he was the first and he was the fine brain behind.
Economist.
Yes, exactly. We were told, okay, he owns a bank, he's done business before. So once he occupies such offices, a lot of things are going to change economically for the good people of Ghana. But in 6 years into the administration of the Akufo-Addo administration, clearly his own 88 MPs had to farm money, go to parliament and farm for him to be removed. Clearly because he has failed. He rather interested in organizing kinky parties to exit the IMF. The very IMF they told us they're going to exit. 6 years or some years down the line, we are back to the same IMF. Now having to go with our cap in hand, begging for the IMF to come and rescue our economy that has been thrown into a ditch. Clearly, all is not well with the economic outlook of Ghana, and Ken Ofori-Atta has clearly failed as finance minister.
So you think the vote of censure should have succeeded?
Exactly, absolutely. At least I want to clearly tell the minority in parliament they've done a yeoman's job. At least they've been able to stand up to the sufferings of the ordinary Ghanaian. They've realized that a lot is not going well economically, and they ought to put their voices heard out there because they represent constituents from the very regions or the very districts they are coming from. And if the finance minister, who we've been told is the one who to turn the fortune of this economy around, is not doing well, we should be able to make sure things are done in the proper perspective. So Ken, with all the slogans he told us, they were the people who can come to turn the fortunes around, clearly hasn't yielded any result. In any case, the head of the EMT cannot be left out of this whole economic melee because he came, told us, okay, when you're organizing lectures up all around the place, telling us you could restore the value of the CD here and there, the CD has depreciated abysmally. The economy is thrown into a ditch. There's absolutely nothing that is working in this country. The dollar that they told us when they signed the SLA agreement with the IMF is back to the same 12 and 13 going up out there. So clearly, Ken Ofori-Atta ought to have been out of the office because he's done virtually nothing sitting in the office as finance minister.
Yes, and Senor, for me, from where I sit, I think that this is a very telling situation. It goes to the core of the polarization of our parliament, where now it's not about the national interest anymore, but it's about partisan interest. And so it's about partisan interest. And so you'll find, even though the majority MPs want the minister to be removed, so you have the majority MPs want the same thing the minority want, but these two groups cannot come together and achieve the same thing because of partisan differences. And that was very telling. That was very telling on the House. And so I think that it's a big lesson to learn from. This is the first time we have had to go through a motion for vote of censure, and the lessons, you remember the the famous lecture given by the speaker on the floor on the motion for vote of censures. We're also very, very instrumental, and it's going to guide Parliament subsequently in the execution of vote of censures. So on that note, we'll take our next story, and Kojo is on standby to give it.
Thank you very much, guys. And I mean, from the vote of censure in Parliament, you are still watching Newsnight on Metro TV. This is 2022 Year in Review. These are the various headlines that made the stories for you and I to enjoy. And then also your Metro TV Live. We give you the best of coverage. This Newsnight is brought to you by MTN. So whether you want data, you want voice, anything you want to do with your Momo transactions and wallet, everything mobile money, everything data, everything voice is about MTN. News coming in indicates that Pope Benedict XVI has died. He died at the age of 95, and we say that may his soul rest in peace. And someone will say that indeed he has ended 2022 with us on a very sad note. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight on Metro TV. My name is Kojo Esiama Ado, and I am the lead advocate for Social Watch Africa, and I was here with my brothers.
And my name is Senor Chagli Brand, and sales manager for Jata Cement.
And with me, Mensah Thompson, executive director for ASEPA.
All right, we are grateful for your time. See you in 2023.